we'll get started with the presentations momentarily. In the meantime, I'm Allie. It's nice to see you all. I'm the Network Engagement Coordinator for the RSRI, and I'm located in Chicago, United States, and I'm really happy to be here today, and I will maybe pass over to Lorraine to introduce herself as well.
Hi, everyone. Welcome. I'm Lorraine. I'm based in Scotland at the moment, and I am the founder and executive director of NAML, and I am coming to you from the Jobtech for Refugees Community of Practice.
Great, thank you. Looks like we have a few people introducing themselves in the chat already. Welcome, welcome. So we will maybe go ahead and get started. Please continue to introduce yourself, keep yourself on mute in case you have any questions. But again, this is a combined community of practice meeting with the Jobtech for Refugees Community of Practice and the RSRI Community of Practice. And we're really excited to bring our communities of practice together today and have some opportunities for some good small group discussions, some co-learning, some knowledge exchange, and also some critical thinking around how our communities of practice might work together, or what are the intersections between digital livelihoods, refugee self-reliance, in the current time and space that we live in. So that's just a little sampling of what we'll be getting into today. Again, thank you everyone for joining and for introducing yourself. And we'll now start with a presentation from the Jobtech for Refugees Community of Practice. And that team will introduce themselves as well. And then we'll hear from my team at the RSRI. We'll give a little overview on our community of practice. And then once we've had presentations from both, we'll have small group discussions in breakout rooms where we can have some discussions around some questions at the intersection of digital livelihoods and refugee self-reliance. So I'll go ahead and pass over to the Jobtech for Refugees team to introduce themselves and their community of practice.
Grace, can you share your screen?
Oh, I can share.
Oh, okay.
So, hi everyone. I guess my name is Michelle Hassan. I am director of the Jobtech Alliance. Jobtech Alliance is an ecosystem initiative that supports job tech platforms across Africa. And I guess it's a partnership. This COP is actually a partnership with NAML and Jobtech Alliance. So I'll kind of like introduce also our team who have actually been able to join. So Grace, you can wave.
Hi everyone, my name is Grace, part of the Jobtech, the COP team.
Great. And also Brenda has joined, who leads our work under the Jobtech for Refugees work. Yeah, Brenda, wave your hand.
Hi everybody. Nice to meet you. Happy to be here.
Fantastic. So maybe Lorraine, you can introduce your team as well.
And from the NAML team, so Tessa, who is here, she is one of the organizers of the Jobtech for Refugees Community of Practice. So Tessa, do you want to turn your camera on and wave? I see you. Okay, she's put a heart. And then my other colleague Isra is here, and Isra is leading the project which I'll talk about. So you'll hear about it after Michelle talks about the COP a bit more.
Hi everyone.
Hey, Isra. Great. So as part of our presentation, we'll talk a little bit about what the COP is all about, who are some of like our members, the publications we have done, and also including sharing that online, some of the in-person events, and then Lorraine will come in to talk about the accelerator, digital agency accelerator that we're working with in Uganda. So as mentioned, the Jobtech for Refugees Community of Practice is an initiative between Jobtech Alliance and NAML. Jobtech Alliance is like a partnership between Mexico and BFA, so it's a lot of partnerships, as you can see. But one of the key reasons, like we thought about how do we do this, is you can't walk alone in this journey. So you actually have to have like partners and organizations that actually work together. So hence why we started the Community of Practice with kind of three key objectives. One is understanding and sharing knowledge and best practices as compared to like not just looking at overall livelihoods, but this subsector on like digital jobs and job tech as a whole, so that we can be able to share with the broader ecosystem. Continue to have a strong relationship and partnership so that we can activate change and hopefully create more jobs for refugees. And then finally, advocating for greater participation of refugees in the digital economy, so that especially they get decent work. We've had lots of stories about people not getting decent work in the sector. As you can see, we have tons of members. Overall, we have about 56 or 57 members who join our COP, and we have everything from academic institutions to refugee-led organizations to associations like Amahoro, and also like private sector companies that are actually working with refugees, for example, EqualReach. And also understanding like this whole sector also is important to showcase like the investors. So we have like Refugee Investment Network and FST Africa as part of it, including also Axion. So as you can see, quite a wide range of people that we're talking about. In terms of publications, so over the last year as the COP, we've been intentional on showcasing our learning. So we have about 2 key reports and a couple of podcasts. One looking at what are the digital employment pipelines for refugees, looking at that in terms of like systemic review. Grace, maybe we can share those links on chat. And then also like a handbook to be able to say like, okay, then how do you incorporate it? How do you facilitate digital livelihoods to be able to support? We also have podcasts. Thanks, Amal, for posting it. But Amal does this amazing work on podcast on showcasing work which is being done. So the COP, also COP members participate in it to share their learnings to the bigger community. But not only that, we also like try to meet up in person at least every 6 months or so. As you can see from this photo, we had a workshop last year to be able to talk about how we integrate refugees to the workforce. And also during the Jobtech Summit, we had a COP to talk about what are the real challenges of scaling refugee-inclusive Jobtech models, and possibly looking at what are the possible viable pathways so that we can be able to kind of create impact and scale. So kind of like a short introduction on what we do like as a COP. So I'll take it back to Lorraine so she can talk about one project that we're doing together.
Hi, everyone. So Michelle gave a very good prelude, scale. So I must put a caveat to this. When I started NAML, scale wasn't a word that I felt allergic to. For me, scale is supporting thousands of people without really providing the depth and quality of service, the depth and quality of programmatic assistance. So for me, the idea that organizations train at scale, it seemed to water down the quality of the work that's provided. And same for jobs. We know that jobs are the key issue with in Africa with refugee populations, but in general. So how can we scale job creation? We see a lot of organizations claiming, yes, I linked 500,000 people to jobs. My questions are, what kind of jobs and how are you doing this? Because we know that there's a gap in jobs. We also know that in the global north, there's a labor shortage. Companies are increasingly struggling to find the people they need to do the work which they want to do. But also, more interestingly, companies are sort of breaking up pieces of work into smaller bits, which they're outsourcing. And when people outsource work, it can be outsourced to anywhere. It can be outsourced to their neighbor down the road, or it can be outsourced to someone in a different continent. So this is why we see this agency model as an interesting model. So in December 2023, January 2024, NAML started the NAML agency. And this is how we provided opportunities for the people that were trained. So we used an existing model that all agencies used all over the world. An agency takes pieces of work that companies don't do in-house, or don't either want to do in-house, don't have the resources to do in-house, and they deliver that work to, and they deliver that work to their client. So we used this exact model, taking on projects which people would want to outsource. So our question was, you outsource work anyway, why not outsource it to refugees? You do two things at once. You create impact and you get the work which you want. So we did this for a year. And we found quite a lot of success. Companies were eager to work with us because our products were good, but also because we were creating impact. So I sort of had this tagline, which I wrote on my LinkedIn a few days ago: build a website, save a life. It's not quite so simplistic, but by companies outsourcing work to our agency, we support the economic development of people who wouldn't have the opportunity otherwise. So these agencies become facilitators. So then my question was, how do I scale this? And again, that word scale. I didn't want to scale by saying, hey, I'm going to employ 1,000 people, because then we lose the quality. We want to maintain the quality. So for us, scale became replication. How can we support other organizations to do what we do, to become that agency replicating our model? And that's what we're doing in Uganda. So as usual in our Jobtech meetings, Michelle and I and the rest of the team, we meet every Monday for half an hour, and we brainstorm ideas. And and I talk about the NAML agency. And one day I said to Michelle, why can't we train other organizations to do what we do at the NAML agency? And that's how this project was born. So we know the issues. People are facing employment barriers, the lack of jobs. So this agency accelerator aims to bridge this gap by supporting NGOs, training partners, and most importantly, RLOs, to build agencies that integrate refugee tech talent into the agencies. So that's the goal of the program. Okay, with the next slide. So in Uganda, we're supporting 3 delivery partners to build agencies. And we do this by a series of workshops. So we basically wrote down everything that we did as an agency, all of our learning. Our ops manager has 20 years experience in agencies. Together with our refugee experience and his agency experience, we wrote down everything that we knew into this guide. And we're using this guide to help other organizations build digital agencies. So next slide. I think we have some examples of the topics in the next slide. Okay. So just to tell you the program outcome, sorry, I'm jumping around. What a program aims to do is inclusion of refugees into the agencies, co-build agencies that include co-build agencies with these organizations, so that they can then have a scalable model, which they can then maybe replicate. Maybe they can also have more workers than we do. And these agencies integrate refugees and produce high quality projects. So for us, this is another key factor. It's not just about building tech products for a client. We're very conscious that the quality has to be there, because we know in Africa there's a PR problem. And to address this PR problem, we have to have the best quality. It's like women. Women have to be better than men. In order to be equal to men, we have to be better. So we're using the same idea. We have to produce the best quality products, the best designs, in order to be seen as equal. So this is what we're trying to the idea we're trying to provide, the idea that we're trying to, I don't want to say brainwash, that's a wrong word, but we're trying to impart these ideas that quality is very important, and the inclusion of refugees. Next slide. So as I said, so the process of doing this is to have workshops, and these workshops, I think we have 14 or 15 modules. I'm not even sure. So we have things around inclusion of refugee talent, proposal writing, project maintenance. So first of all, how you have the refugee talent, how do you recruit them? How do you assess them? How do you decide who is best for what project? You have a project that someone's advertised. You've got to write a proposal. How do you write the proposal? How do you price the project? We talk about how to then support the learners, sorry, wrong word. How do you support the organizations with, sorry, I'm losing my words. How do you support the client, that's the word, the client, once you build the project, build the product? So it's not just a one-off relationship. How do you continue to provide maintenance and support? Sales and marketing, the hardest part. How do you get the work? How do you build the funnel? That's all the potential clients. But then when you have the funnel, how do you actually get the client to say yes? How do you get them to sign on that dotted line? So in these workshops, we support the organizations we're working with to do all of these things. So the 3 organizations in Uganda, they're pretty slick, pretty easy to work with. But we know when we're working with different organizations, sometimes we might have to start from basics. Start with simple things about finance and financial systems and structures. The organizations we're working with in the pilot didn't need that detailed level of support. But the point of this agency accelerator is to support these organizations, RLOs, training organizations, NGOs, to become agencies so that they can then replicate our model, and then they can then create jobs for refugees. Because there is, I don't want to say the work is finite, but there's a lot of work out there. We just need to understand how to find it and how to get them to say yes to working with agencies like Normal Agency and the agencies we're building. Next slide. And yeah, I'm going to stop here. Any questions about the agencies? I'm happy to take it now or sometime at the end of the meeting. But as I said, our goal is to really find ways to create jobs at scale. And jobs at scale isn't one person doing everything. That's what I find. I think that's my main message. Jobs at scale is not one organization doing everything, but everyone doing everything together. And as Michelle said, cooperation is the only way we can make this work. I see, can I take a question, Ali? Am I allowed?
Yes, we have lots of time.
Okay. Fabio, you had your hand up.
Thanks a lot for the excellent presentation. Of trying to put my video on. I have just a couple of questions to better understand a few parts of this, because it sounds very interesting. The 2 questions are: how much do you support those, let's say, the RLOs, for example, because that's the kind of organization I'm interested in covering the last mile towards the big hiring companies, those with the needs for those skills? And then do they need to have some, let's say, prerequisite? I mean, any organization, even in a very basic organization, can apply for this support, or they need some basic structure or some requisites basically that are needed for being able to take advantage? Thanks a lot.
So obviously, the more structure, the more existing structure they have, the easier it is. So as I said, the 3 organizations we're supporting, they didn't need us to talk about how to, how to do their finances, because they already do that really well. They didn't need us to talk about how to hire and how to build teams, because they do that really well. So what we're supporting them with is sort of how to structure the agency and think about this sort of sales and marketing and project delivery. So yes, we can work with RLOs, but cognizant that it's going to take a lot longer and a lot more hand-holding, and it's going to cost, it's going to cost more for us to provide that support to RLOs than it would for an organization that's already well established. A lot more time and because a lot more resources is going to go, will need to go into it. And so for these 3 organizations in Uganda, we're working remotely. If I were to work with RLOs, I would want my team with them for at least a couple of weeks to do a lot of the hand-holding, because I do feel that they'll need a lot of hand-holding just to conceptualize what we're trying to do. Because even for us as an organization, as an NGO, it was a big leap for us to move from an NGO thinking into a business thinking, because that's effectively what we're doing. We're building a business. It's not an NGO anymore. And for us as an organization, that was a big leap, even as normal, even with the strong structures and advisors and governance we had. And we're still constantly trying to understand how to build and grow. So for RLOs, it's going to take a lot more support to get them to the road where they can actually be successful. And your first question, I'm not sure if I understand the first question. Fabio, can you ask again?
Sure, I can. You, if I understood it well, we support organizations so that the organization can help refugees, in this case, land jobs in the digital market. Is that correct?
Not
Okay.
quite. So it's not
Okay.
refugees landing jobs. It's the agencies, the intermediary. So yes, one model can eventually be an organization needs a developer and they're sort of seconded from the RLO to that company. But the easier model is the agency as the intermediary. So like Fabio, if you needed a website, you would either hire a freelancer or hire an agency. So this agency, you don't hire the developer directly from the agency, you hire the agency. So this is what we're proposing. We build the agency, the RLOs become these agencies. So there's a B2B relationship, and the RLOs or the agencies are the ones that provide the structure for the refugees to work, and understand that
Yeah. For RLO, it's obvious that at any level there'll be refugees. So for now, it's not an issue.
Yes.
The point is, how much support do they get for this agency to be able to land a contract with a client of any kind, from a company to a person?
So how much business development support do they get?
Yeah.
Well,
the market linkage and everything.
Yes. Well, this is what we're trying to do. Obviously, so Michelle mentioned an organization called Equal Reach. Equal Reach's role is to be that intermediary to bring the clients to the agencies. So yes, there are other entities like Equal Reach that act as those intermediaries to bring the client, because the business development is the hardest part. But what we also want to do is provide them with the ability to also go out to look for clients, because we can't forever be handing them clients. They need to learn to become independent. So yes, there is an intermediary that can provide access to clients through writing a proposal and sort of submitting it and the clients choosing, but also we're equipping them with the skills to actually go out and find clients.
Thanks a lot.
Okay, I saw Natalina had a hand up. Natalina, do you still have a question? All right.
Hi, sorry.
There.
I do sort of have a question. So my name is Natalina Yang. I wanted to kind of inquire, is it based on the business development aspect of things? Is it based on organizations, or you can assist in independent projects? For example, if I have a project that I want to implement and I need a business model where I've written my proposal, I have my technical proposal in place, but I don't have the network now to be able to take the project to the people who would be able to fund it. So is it predominantly based on, when you say tech, is it like predominantly based on organizations that are focused on tech? Is it predominantly based on organizations in itself? Do you also assist like independent project leaders? So I just wanted to kind of gauge that. That's why I was kind of hesitant to ask, because I don't know much as of yet. So let me just throw that in just to get an idea.
Okay, well, that's a new business model you've given me, Natalia. Supporting organizations find money, but I mean, so we aren't fundraisers. So the goal of the agency is to find work opportunities for refugee talent, and a lot of the refugee talent are trained in tech. And I see Daniel, one of our alumni, on the program. I'm sorry, on the call today. And Daniel, excuse me, I'm going to use you as an example. So Daniel's a full stack web developer. He's a data analyst as well. So Daniel has been in a team with other refugees delivering tech projects to clients. So that's effectively what we do, because there's a lot of refugees trained in digital skills, because we recognize this is sort of needed for the workforce of the future. But that's to say that this model of an agency can be replicated for different things. It doesn't have to be tech. You know, it's the consulting model. You hire McKinsey to do a project for you. So it's that consulting model. It's just that we're doing it in tech because that's what our learners are trained to do. But that whole model can be adapted to anything. And the same sort of skills are needed. You need to write a proposal, you need to do a budget, you need to find clients. So in terms of the process of learning to be an agency, it's the same, but your product, whether you build a website or whether you are supporting your client find funding, it's still the agency consulting model. Sarah?
Hi, sorry, I'm not going to turn my video on, which I apologize for. So I think this is really interesting, and I know there's a lot of interest in this, and there have been different models tried many times over the years. And you know, in the US, we have organizations like the Tent Partnership that does a similar kind of agency placement job tech model. I'm curious, you said before that you think this model would be translatable to other sectors. And I'm wondering if in fact, I'm curious because I feel that the tech business, the remote tech world is particularly well suited for this kind of an agency model. And I'm curious if you've done sort of sectoral research on other sectors, on other markets that you think it would work with, and how it is actually maybe very well structured, this kind of model for remote tech-based activities and work. Because I do think that's important. I would like to talk more about it and think more about it with this group about are there certain sectors that this is better suited for?
And yes, I agree. It is definitely suited for tech because of the remote nature of tech. But if you think about so many tasks that we do can be done remotely. We don't need a physical presence to do a lot of the tasks we do. The teams can be remote. So as I said, it's the consulting model. If we think of McKinsey and PwC, often McKinsey come to our offices to sort of deliver the projects we want. But in reality, they don't need to come to our offices. If we give McKinsey a brief, they can build whatever they need to and deliver the PowerPoint, which is usually a PowerPoint to us. So it's that we're sort of kind of replicating that consulting model, but saying that, yes, tech is particularly suitable for this. I mean, you asked about research. I think the research will have to be how the other sectors are suitable for refugees, because this model isn't a new model, because there are lots of people who are doing these models for non-refugee populations in many different sectors, and it works and it's successful. As I said, it's the consulting model. I think what's different for refugee populations, we have to understand the skill, have to understand the skill that the refugee populations we're working with have, and how these skills are translatable into something that can be done remotely. And also, how can we sell these skills? Because again, tech skills are easily sellable. I can sell someone to build a website. I can sell someone to build an MVP. So even though some things can be done remotely, can we actually build a business and sort of sell these services to clients? Are these services even needed? We know tech is particularly good because companies often don't have an in-house tech team, or NGOs don't have an in-house tech team. They outsource all of their tech work, or most of their tech work. So it's just a matter of, I guess the research would be trying to understand what are the sectors where work is outsourced, and how does this align with the skills that refugees are being trained, or skills that refugees have. But again, I say refugees, like, refugees aren't a homogenous group. So, so it depends on what training. So for us, because we do training in digital skills, it makes sense for us to do this because we understand the skills that talent have because we're training them ourselves. Sarah, language, culture, sector note. Yes, exactly. Yes, exactly. So for us, I'll just say comment on this quickly. For us, we're looking at the global market, not just the Kenyan market, because actually we work beyond Kenya. We work in Ethiopia, we work in Uganda, and also in Kenya. So we're looking at global markets because, again, tech products are often, to an extent, country agnostic. So it doesn't matter what country the developer is from. The work can be delivered to a client anywhere. So I guess where the cultural nuances come about is a sort of design and sort of more aesthetic look at this. But what we're doing is we understand that the market is in the global north. So when we do our training, we're supporting the talent to understand what's the taste, for lack of a better word, of the clients they'd be encountering. Obviously, because they're Kenyan, they understand the Kenyan market really well, or Ethiopian. But what they may not they may understand less well is the taste of the quote unquote Western market. And this is what we do when we're supporting them. What are the designs which are more aesthetically pleasing to the audiences which you're marketing your products to? So this is where, the support of the agency and within the agency, there's a senior tech lead who has experience globally, and also the operations manager, again, who has broad experience. These are the ones that support, the RLO or the refugee populations to access a much broader market. Any other questions? I'm happy to, please connect with me by email if you want to talk in more detail about it, because I'm sure there are a lot more questions. Anything else? Okay, maybe Ali, over to you, and I know we have groups after. Oh, should I take Abdullahi's last question?
Yes, one more question and then.
Okay, one more question. Last question, Abdullahi. Nice to see you.
Thank you, Lauren. This is Abdullahi, and I am happy to be part of this session today as one of the leaders in the refugee camps here in the Dab, Kenya. As my title, I'm the chairman of now a refugee-led organization by the name Dadaab Collective, whereby maybe most of you may have had it before. I heard about now Equal Reach. I also heard about now this kind of new agency. It's therefore to create opportunities for the refugees. We have now, can we say, we usually have now some talented refugees here in the refugee camps, but what they may lack is that now that kind of network or that kind of linkage to those clients, maybe those clients in UK, for example, a good, now they were around 12 of now my members are currently working with Amazon, but that kind of linkage was created through ITC. And then I hope now to ITC, it was brought by now the CEO of now this Equal Reach. Before she was working with ITC, but currently maybe she established her own organization or her own agency, which is now the Equal Reach. So currently, what can be now the opportunities that can be created for the refugees as job opportunities? And then how can we take such kind of advantage as refugees now? Back to you.
Abdullahi, thanks for that. You always ask me challenging questions. I've been on panels with this gentleman, he's always challenging me. So Abdullahi, really good question. And that's really what we aim to do. Support organizations like yours. And in fact, when we were building the accelerator, yours was one of the organizations that we thought about. How do we support organizations like yours take you to the next level? And this is really what we built it for, because already you're at a really good stage. You've worked with clients, you know what's required. But how do we give you that polish? How do we polish the diamond to make the diamond even much more valuable? And this is what we aim to do at the accelerator. Support you to take you to the next level, because you already have the structures, you've been doing the work. You just need that extra bit to get there. And as I mentioned, Equal Reach is still a partner in this, because they're the ones that provide, they're one of the intermediaries that bring the clients. But in fact, we need many more organizations like Equal Reach. We need many more of them because, again, one organization can't address the need that's, the need that exists. We need multiple Equal Reaches in order to reach the scale that we need to. And for us, that's why we built the accelerator, to create many more agencies like NAML Agency. We need many more organizations to be not just agencies, but to be intermediaries to bring work from different markets.
Great. Yeah, thank you for that great question, Abdullahi, and hopefully we can continue some of that discussion in the breakout rooms as well. But yeah, thank you to the Jobtech for Refugees team, Jobtech Alliance, and NAML for a great presentation and just really innovative work and models in the space. So now we'll shift over. I'll present on the RSRI and our community of practice and ways you can get involved. And then we'll move into breakout rooms to discuss the intersections of our different work streams. So I'll go ahead and share my screen now. And if you are part of the Jobtech for Refugees community of practice and you haven't been to an RSRI meeting before, welcome. We're so excited to have you here and to get your insight and perspectives. Again, my name is Ali Gillespie. I'm the RSRI Network Engagement Coordinator. I have two of my team members here with me as well today. Shelby Quackenbush is our Communications Manager, and Daniela Segovia is our Research and Partnerships Coordinator. So happy to have them on the call as well. And so I just want to start off with a question. If you could go ahead and add in the chat, what does self-reliance mean to you? Are there different components of refugee self-reliance, different models, any just kind of words that come to mind when you hear the phrase refugee self-reliance? If we could just take a minute or two to add your thoughts in the chat. Any brave souls want to get started in the chat?
Sorry, can you repeat your question, please?
Yes, can everyone see my screen? Maybe? Okay. What does refugee self-reliance mean to you? So if you could just add maybe a word that comes to mind, or a phrase, or a type of program or component, just what comes to mind when you hear refugee self-reliance? Being able to sustain yourself as a refugee. Great. Autonomy, absolutely. Autonomy, agency. Any other words that anyone else wants to add? Independence, sustainability, see more independence, not dependent on humanitarian aid. Dignity, that's a great one. Awesome. Settled, yes. So feel free to keep adding words. I'll continue on. Economic empowerment, social inclusion, dignity and agency. Great. So the Refugee Self-Reliance Initiative was born because the crisis is outpacing solutions. Millions of people are currently in a state of protracted limbo, left without many opportunities to provide for themselves, rebuild their lives. These numbers might be old at this point. So over 117 million plus displaced people around the globe, and expecting many, many more due to increasing conflicts and climate change. And 80% of people who are displaced and have refugee status live in a state of protracted displacement, with less than 3% of refugees able to access durable solutions, including repatriation, resettlement, or legal integration. So we recognize that the humanitarian system is not fit for purpose, and that we need a different approach that enables refugees to rebuild their lives, support themselves and their families, and contribute to their communities. So at the RSRI, we're interested in shifting kind of the broader system of refugee response. We want to move from vulnerability-focused care and maintenance models that perpetuate cycles of dependence and never allow people to the ability to thrive and support themselves, and shift to policy, program, and research approaches that open up opportunities for refugees, regardless of context, to be able to earn a living using their skills and talents, support themselves and their families, and contribute in many different ways to their communities. At the RSRI, we know that there's been huge impacts of funding cuts from the US administration and other governments on our entire network and many of the clients and households that people work with across the world. And we've noticed that there has been a sink or swim context in which there's almost a state of forced self-reliance rather than sustainable and dignified self-reliance. We also are seeing a lot of changes accelerating that were already in process. So there's less resettlement opportunities available. We do see kind of a more emphasis on localization that was already starting to happen. We're seeing differentiated assistance models pop up to try and shift the way that funding is channeled to different households and different groups. And we've also seen a movement away from camp models into more urban refugee programming and policies. We've also seen elevated pressures on hosting states with all of these other contextual factors. So the RSRI defines self-reliance as the social and economic ability of an individual, a household, or a community to meet its essential needs in a sustainable manner and with dignity. And we pull this from the UNHCR definition. I think some important things to highlight here is that we define self-reliance as moving beyond economic ability, so moving beyond livelihoods to include many of the different social aspects of integration, access to education, access to healthcare, et cetera. And also, we don't see self-reliance as existing solely at the individual level. An entire community could be self-reliant, a household, see it as a broader, more integrated concept that isn't just about individual people getting jobs, but as an entire community able to thrive. So this is a framework that we use for our self-reliance index measurement tool, which you might be familiar with. We can share a link in the chat. The self-reliance index measurement tool is used by over 60 organizations in over 30 countries who are looking to track the households in their programs progress toward self-reliance. So you can see we look at our basic needs being met. Are people able to access housing, food, education, healthcare? And then how are people meeting those basic needs? Are they able to find jobs? Are they legally able to work? Do they have other financial resources such as savings or remittances from family living overseas? Are they accessing assistance or aid from local humanitarian organizations? Or are they using debt to meet their basic needs? And then when thinking about self-reliance, it's not only important if people's basic needs are being met currently, but are people able to sustain their basic needs? Are they able to sustain the circumstances and the environment to be able to thrive and sustain self-reliance into the future? So do they have savings? Do they feel safe in their environment? Do they feel safe enough to seek out opportunities such as work or education? And then do people have social capital in their communities? Are there people in their communities that they can go to if they need advice or support? And vice versa, are there people in their communities that come to them for advice and support? We also think about financial social capital. Can people, if they need to borrow money, do they have a community of people that they can turn to borrow money in their communities? And then finally, health status. Do people have the health care they need for, emergent or chronic conditions to be able to feel well enough mentally, physically, to be able to pursue opportunities in their community? So we know as an initiative that many gaps remain in these efforts. There's limited data and evidence on self-reliance programs that work best, what different models work in different contexts. A lot of places have very restrictive policy environments. such as denying refugees the right to work and access to social services. And so, you know, again, self-reliance isn't always at the individual level, but what policies can we change to create an enabling environment for communities to be able to thrive? We know that there's few collaboration opportunities for refugees and stakeholders to share learning perspectives and best practices. And we know that there's restrictive funding practices that have only increased with the many global funding cuts. So in response, the Refugee Self-Reliance Initiative serves as a learning hub. We aim to be a space where we are sharing and building evidence on the different approaches that work. So many organizations use our self-reliance index. Of course, there's many other ways to measure progress towards self-reliance and households and communities' ability to thrive. And so we want to share those approaches amongst ourselves and share knowledge and exchange resources within our really vast network to really learn together about what works best and how we can improve the different programs and policies that are emerging. We also see ourselves as a global convener. So we have, you know, our community of practice that meets regularly through different virtual events. We convene lots of different organizations for our multi-stakeholder pledge on economic inclusion and social protection at the Global Refugee Forum. So we're really trying to build and convene different groups who are all working to advance refugee self-reliance in different ways. And using the evidence from our vast collective to influence policies and funding to promote self-reliance outcomes. So kind of aligning with how we see ourselves, we have these different pillars. One of these is learning, another one is programming, and another is policy and advocacy. And I won't read each of these bullet points, but just to say that we're really taking an approach from 3 different angles to be the most effective and impactful in the work that we all do to build self-reliance across contexts. Again, I'm not going to read every piece of this, but this is our theory of change, looking at those 3 pillars of work and how they can promote more evidence-informed decisions. Our programming can help different actors across different sectors work in coalition better. So an example of that is coming together even today with the Jobtech for Refugees Community of Practice. We want to create opportunities for people to network and build ideas and programs and efforts together and in collaboration. And then finally, policy and advocacy, we want to use our collective to influence how funding is distributed, how host governments are shaping and forming their different policies. And then hopefully all 3 of these pillars will come together to shift the refugee response paradigm away from vulnerability to strengths-based models and to be able to reach refugees at scale with self-reliance programming. And I see in the chat a request for the presentation. We will send out an email after this whole session with all of these links and presentations, as well as a recording. So ultimately, our mission is to expand opportunities for refugees and other forcibly displaced populations to become self-reliant and achieve their goals. So that is kind of the RSRI more broadly. Now zooming in into our community of practice, which falls under our programming pillar. We have a lot of different virtual engagement opportunities for our network. So we have our RSRI Hub, which is our learning exchange, our resource exchange platform, and we'll share links to all of these as well. The RSRI Hub is kind of like our internal social media, so you can go on there, you can meet other people in our network. We have different chat rooms and spaces for different parts of our network. And it's a great place also to share resources, learn about different opportunities, and just kind of connect more deeply. We also have bi-monthly COP learning calls. We'll have one September 24th, so later this month. On each of these calls, we have 2 network members present on the work that they're doing, and we have opportunities for discussion and exchange. We'll host one-off webinars, workshops, dialogues for the network to come together around specific topics. And then several Tuesdays every month, we have virtual coffee hours, which is an informal meeting space for COP members to come together and just have really informal conversations about the work that you're doing in your organization, to meet other people. Every single virtual coffee hours kind of takes its own shape, takes its own pathway. So if you're interested, I encourage you to join those if you just want an informal space to meet people to chat. We also have several different technical working groups within our community of practice. So we have a research-focused community of practice that meets quarterly, and that is a space for academics and researchers to talk about some of the emerging evidence and projects related to self-reliance. We also have a refugee leadership and RLO engagement technical working group. About 30 to 40% of our network are refugee-led organizations, and we recognize the role of RLOs in facilitating community-level self-reliance, and just the vital role that they have there. And so we bring together RLOs and refugee leaders from across contexts to share their own learning and resources and to really shape the direction the RSRI takes in terms of supporting RLOs. We also have a climate risks and self-reliance technical working group that looks at the intersection of climate risks, climate resilience, and how different climate adaptations within programs, within policy, can work to facilitate self-reliance as we continue to see climate displacement around the world with climate change. And then finally, we have a market systems development technical working group, and we actually have our facilitator here on the call, Sasha. Thanks for joining us, Sasha. Sasha with the MSD group hosts a lot of different webinars and other events and produces some deliverables. So for example, on our website, you can find an MSD 101 glossary and document. And also Sasha occasionally joins for virtual coffee hours to talk about MSD topics in a more informal way. So if you want to sign up for our community of practice, you can also sign up for any of these technical working groups and get involved if there's a topic or area of refugee self-reliance that you're particularly interested in. Other ways to engage. If you're part of our network, you can always submit a proposal or a concept note for some sort of co-hosted event. For example, I was chatting with Tessa from NAML, who's here on this call, and we were like, we should bring our communities of practice together, do something combined. So there's always opportunities to do that. You could join the RSRI Hub and post resources, job opportunities, or discussion questions, or go on there to read other people's posts. We have a learning agenda that outlines a lot of the learning and evidence building priorities around refugee self-reliance. For example, how does gender impact refugee self-reliance? Are there gender considerations that programs should be thinking about? Or what does self-reliance look like in different contexts? So we encourage our COP members to collaborate with one another to address those learning agenda research questions, building the evidence base in collaboration. You could also use the Self-Reliance Index measurement tool. It's free and open access. We also have e-learning trainings online for the Self-Reliance Index tool, and our technical and training support manager, Ned, can connect with your organization one-on-one if you're interested to help you get set up with the tool. We also encourage anyone who uses the tool to share de-identified data. In the next, I think, month or two, we're launching our global dashboard with the data that we have from many different organizations who use our tool. So people will be able to kind of see what are some of the global trends in terms of self-reliance, or zoom in different contexts and see, you know, what does housing look like in this context? So that's one way to really get involved and help to build the evidence base. We also have a resource database that we curate with resources that we find through literature searches, as well as publications that different organizations in our network send to us for inclusion in the resource database. So that one also you can filter in terms of topic or context. So if you're looking for self-reliance resources to improve your programming, that is a great place to look for lots of different curated resources. And if you have anything you want us to include, please do send to us so we can add it to the resource database as well. And then our community of practice is, you know, a community. So we always are looking for members to share thoughts, ideas, and feedback so that we can improve the offerings available So one place to do this more formally is that at the end of the year, we will send out a COP member survey, and we hope that our members will fill that out to let us know what they want to see in the following year. I will pause now and see if anyone has any questions about the RSRI or any of our work streams, our pillars, or ways to get involved. So yeah, does anyone have questions? Is everyone just eager to get into the small group discussions? Maybe. Great.
Hello.
Well, yes.
Sorry, I've forgotten. I've joined right now. At the same time, I don't know if I told you will be sharing the resources because I've joined late, really.
Oh, okay. For some reason, I can't see who's talking on my screen.
This is Isaac.
This is Isaac. Okay. Thank you for joining, Isaac. We will share the presentations as well as the recording. So if you missed the beginning, don't worry. We'll send that around after the call if you want to get up to speed.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, thanks for joining us. This is a combined community of practice call with the Jobtech for Refugees Community of Practice and the RSRI Community of Practice. Any other questions? Great. So then I guess I'll go ahead and share the discussion questions that we'll soon move into our small group discussions for. And then we'll move into our breakout rooms. But essentially in this call and bringing our communities of practice together, we want to give an opportunity to discuss the intersection of digital livelihoods and self-reliance. What opportunities are there? How do digital livelihoods facilitate self-reliance? What does it mean in terms of scale? So here are just some of the discussion questions that we've put together. And then we'll move into our small groups, but definitely encourage you if you have other topics or other kind of things that you're noticing that you want to bring up to do that as well. So make sure all the breakout rooms are set up. And then we will move along. Just give me 1 second to get this going. So the questions are, how can digital livelihoods support refugee self-reliance in ways traditional livelihoods do not or cannot? What is the added value? What is the role of RLOs in facilitating digital livelihoods and self-reliance? What factors might be considered when taking a market systems approach to digital livelihoods? What does promoting self-reliance through digital work look like in different contexts? And what are the policy barriers and opportunities? And then finally, how does the growing use of AI change or inform pathways forward at the intersection of digital livelihoods and self-reliance? So please, in your groups, respond to whatever makes the most sense and what really sparks your thoughts. We'll post these questions in the chat as well. Oh, Shelby already did. Thank you, Shelby. So I'll go ahead and open the breakout rooms. And if anyone has any questions, please stick around to ask. Otherwise, you can go straight into the breakout rooms. And we'll do 2 breakout rooms for about 10 to 15 minutes each. So I'll call you back when it's time and we'll do a debrief and a closing. But if somebody in each of the groups wants to take some notes on any kind of important thoughts that you want to bring back to the group, please do so. And each of the group has a facilitator. So I will go ahead and open up the rooms. And let me know if you don't see that. Otherwise, enjoy the discussion. Welcome back. I hope you all had great discussions. I want to apologize. When I was switching the rooms around, I thought it would give a 60-second warning, and I was told it did not give a 60-second warning. So I just want to apologize to anyone I cut off by switching around the rooms. I hope you were able to complete your thought in the next space. But yeah, good to know for the next time. Great. Well, I just want to open the floor if anyone wants to share any key takeaways from your rooms or any just really important sticking points or things that you want to take forward as you continue in your work. Does anyone want to share?
Sasha, do you want to continue your point? It was really interesting.
I can't remember the details now. You and I can continue offline. Yes, what were we talking about? Oh, refugees. So Daniel was telling, I was asking, what do we do? There are people who've got the business sense and who can turn these tech jobs into real businesses, and people who are more of the doers with the coders. But how do we build that layer, which Lorraine was talking about as the agency accelerator model? But Daniel, who's doing this, was talking about how refugees, like within Kakuma, how refugees can support other refugees. So refugees just getting started can learn the skills and learn how to do this through others. And I think that refugees helping refugees is a great model we should explore more.
Yeah, definitely. So in terms of bringing people into the sector, or perhaps even in terms of mentorship for those who have the experience, absolutely. What other discussion points do people want to share? Okay, I do see a question in the chat. How is RSRI aligning its programs with the Sharika Plan's objectives on refugee self-reliance? That's a great question. I will note that the RSRI does not do direct programming with refugee communities. Rather, we're a network of organizations who do that both in Kenya, but also in many different contexts around the world. So RSRI is hosted by Refuge Point, which is based in Nairobi. And I know Refuge Point has self-reliance programming. And part of that is in terms of looking at how households how well they're integrating into the community. So I don't have a concrete answer for you in terms of how they're aligning the program with the Sharika Plan's objectives in particular, but I think that would be a great topic for a future session. And if any other organizations here, if anyone is in Kenya and has an answer on how their own organization is doing that, please do feel free to speak up and share. Otherwise, does anyone have any other kind of points they want to raise from the discussions?
Hi, Ali. I can just share something quickly. I think it's come up in conversations we've had about digital livelihoods just generally, but folks spoke about obviously how beneficial it is to work remotely and have the digital livelihood space open to refugees who normally would face challenges with travel and work permits. But then we also talked about sort of the challenge of opening up the global marketplace means there's more competition, and you need to align your trainings that you provide to folks so that they can be sort of upskilled in the same way or at the same level as others across the world. So we had some good conversations around how you do that and how you sort of match skills to the global competition, how you bridge trainings to kind of meet that freelancing market space. So I don't know if folks want to provide specific examples, and I don't think it's sort of a revelatory point that was made. Everyone seemed to have that on their mind, but I do think it's an important one, sort of the benefit and the challenge of sort of working in this digital space.
Great, thank you for sharing. And kind of aligning with that, I see Tessa posted in the chat. One question that came up in our group was how agency models can overcome the common bureaucratic issues that come along with refugee employment across different locations. For example, tax numbers or how to pay workers. Absolutely, there are many of these kind of more logistical, technical questions that are important in moving this work forward. And Sasha said, great point. Tessa, I know that there's a lot of work, the Gaza Sky Geeks that they do in the Middle East. Thanks for that example, Sasha. Great, well, I see that we are at time. So on behalf of the RSRI side, thank you so much for coming. Want to hand it over to Jobtech for Refugees. Michelle, yes, if there's anything you wanted to add for closing.
No, just to say thank you so much. I've had fantastic conversations. I think this collab works great and working together. Yeah, so Sasha, I'm joining your MSD working group, but it'll be interesting. Yeah, so yeah, continue collaborating.
And I'll just add, yeah, thank you everyone for the really engaging questions and discussions. Any of you, please feel free to connect on LinkedIn, and happy to continue the discussion. And hopefully we'll join again. But also feel free to join the, our community of practice, Jobtech community of practice. The information will be in the resources, so feel free to join. We have meetings every other month, and again, they're also lively discussions like this. So thank you all, and thank you for your great questions, and see you soon.